Record. Okay, great. We're both recording. We can both use this video as we wish. Kerry, I have known you for a long time, and I've really respected all the work that you've done with Project Camelot. You gave people like David Wilcock his start. I consider you one of a dirty dozen, maybe even a handful, 5 top people in the secret space war arena. Now, recently you recommended to me a video talking about how the shuttle was actually shot down by an energy beam. And we agreed to talk now for a few minutes. Just give us an overview of what you think is going on in outer space right now and who's doing what.
Okay, well, that's a tall order, but the bottom line, and my information again comes from my sources. It also comes from my own intuitive downloads, you might call them, and it also comes from what we call triangulation. That is when 3 or more sources agree on something, then I take it seriously and do more research. So the door is always open. Things can be proven or disproven as we go along, but at the moment, my information is quite substantial, and I can say that according to Captain Mark Richards, we are fighting a war right now, strangely, in the Orion galaxy that is spilled over also onto Earth. We've been fighting with various alien races now for many centuries, maybe ever since humans came to the planet. So initially, this planet was considered to be belonging to the reptilians and the Draco, and they will continue to try to exercise their will over humans. And specifically the reptilians are called the marauders of the galaxy. So it's not just this planet and these humans, but it's actually planets and galaxies that the reptilians will go around and try to dominate and take over, and also use as food sources and for trading, because they use humans or humanoids as a trading source. So they trade with other races that do use us as slaves, and that includes, sex slaves, but for food and also other nefarious uses. We're also, by the way, used because of our ingenuity in building and flexibility. And even the Pleiadians, who are in most cases supposed to be our friends, and certainly we are descended from them in part, and they're descended also from Lyra, as we are. But they also like to use us for the front lines in their war with the reptilians and Draco. So humans are fighters.
Who's in charge for Earth? Now, I've heard that there's a multinational secret space force, and that China, Russia, and the United States are in alignment. Is that correct?
It's supposed to be. However, there are extenuating circumstances, and one of those circumstances is that China and North Korea are at the moment aligned with a sort of new guys on the block type of alien race. And I can't tell you who that is. I might have a conjecture on that. They've always been aligned with the Draco, and therefore, if we are in partnership with them in the secret space program, it may be keeping your enemies close, or your friends close and your enemies closer. But my understanding at the moment is that we're actually not on the same side as China.
How's the United States doing?
Well, in the war in the Orion galaxy right now, according to Mark Richards again, 200,000 humans are out there fighting as part of our secret space program. And we are, I think, doing a good job there. We have battles on many fronts, and we have Solar Warden that is protecting our particular galaxy. We are terraforming planets within our galaxy, like moons of Saturn and Jupiter. And we are making deals with various races, including those from Aldebaran, who got involved quite early on, well, especially with the Nazis, as you may know, and they continue to be involved. They're involved also what appears to be a race of reptoids that has now been given at least part of Africa, if not all, and that comes, by the way, from, among other people, Gordon Duff.
Gordon
So
Duff.
how are we doing? It's, in any kind of war situation, fog of war and all of that, there's a lot going on. I can say that according to, again, Mark Richards, where he's a very primary witness in these regards because he was a captain of the Space Force, and he continues to be tapped even to this day, even by the sort of new rendition, which is brought forward, at least in the public eye, Space Force that Trump has brought to the force. So
Richards is in prison now.
He has been in prison for over, actually it's around 35 years. So for most of his super adult, his adult life, I mean, prior to that, he was raised in the secret space program. So he got involved very early on with a father and a grandfather who will also supplying information to what would become our secret space program. And his grandfather was working with Tesla. His father was a very well-respected Air Force. I forget what his rank was, but high-level Air Force. I can't. It was above captain, but I don't know. I forget the name.
So, are there two competing space programs? Is there a Navy space program and an Air Force space program?
Okay, not to my knowledge. To my knowledge, there is. What we have are a surface military and an underground secret space program. Now, there is a feed, a sort of a flow through between the two, as well as with our military industrial complex that involves high tech and goes to places like Kazakhstan, where we have a base and a major sort of super modern city and so on. So, but to get back to the different groups of military are aligned with various groups of aliens, and certain of those aliens are, in theory, are enemies of each other. So there's overlap and there's also separation. And I can tell you that the Navy is said to be the head of the entire secret space program, specifically, Navy Intel and ONI. And I can say that the Air Force is more or less given that sort of over to the Navy, as I understand it. There's also the Army, and they were very involved and continue to be, I believe, with gray aliens. And those are many races of gray aliens. So it's hard to cut and dry everything, to make it simple. But understanding that there's an overall sort of leadership, from my understanding. They do have meetings in places like Exeter on this planet, and also in Peru. And possibly in Chile. And these meetings are with various races of ETs, so a kind of a UN that meets in these places and has been for many years. We have treaties. The treaties have been set up and then violated time and time again. Even going back to the early days of Camelot, when we interviewed Dan Burish, he would talk about the Tau 9 treaty and others that were violated. Mark has also talked about these meetings and so on. So it's like there's a whole world of secret space involvement that humans are not party to unless you're close to a certain level of the military, black projects, etc. And the wars and many wars and wars at the top, there is disagreement between what are called the Luciferians and from what I understand, kind of the Nazi contingent, but it's a fine line. So they war with each other. I'm not sure what direction to go with that.
I went through an entire career as a Marine Corps officer, and then as a spy, and then as a second-ranking civilian in Marine Corps intelligence, and I never got a clue. Now, I'm feeling, on the one hand, I'm feeling left behind, and on the other hand, I'm wondering, how is it that something like this can just go on without the second-ranking civilian in the Marine Corps intelligence community seeing it?
Well, there's a lot of levels. First of all, mind control plays a big part. And that's also, you know, I've interviewed people who have been mind controlled and who are members of the military who also, like you, might not know or at least think they know anything that's going on. We've got soldiers going into programs where they're going off planet into what is commonly called 20 and back programs. This has been talked about out in the sector for many years. People that are assigned to Mars and other planets, Randy Kramer, for example, and others who have come forward. I can tell you that as recently as today, I talked to somebody who was a very high level military in the Air Force who, again, validated everything I'm telling you. So in terms of how you didn't know, one side, in essence, I think there's suspicions, okay? I think the higher up you go, even in the officers, there will be people that are suspicious. They will find out that there are sort of, in essence, what we have is a parallel track, right? And I don't know if you remember the missile that went off the coast that was shot over, I think it was Catalina. This is a year or two ago, maybe more. Actually more than 2 years probably. And that was shot out by one part of the military, whereas the other part of the military was completely naive about it. And it got reported as if it was a nefarious incident. Some people thought it was China. But what they don't understand is that in a sense, there are miniature battles going on between the levels of the service, but they don't clue people in. The Gulf oil spill, for example, had to do with the Falklands War, had to do with the AI and the black goo. All of this was unknown to most of the military, to most of people even that were on the platform. But I can tell you that I had a whistleblower who did work out there and did get clued in as to what was going on and validated the space program side of that, the fact that we're fighting a group of aliens who have invaded Earth centuries ago, actually. And so there's so many levels at which it leaks through. I can tell you that I've talked to low-level soldiers, some of whom were in like Alabama, and I have these testimony in various interviews that I've done, and it's also off the record talks. So they report to me that they have been used in programs that involve grays, that involve one individual who his group was involved in a whole operation, and he just joined. He was just getting through boot camp, and they were used in an operation that involved gray aliens, and he became aware of it. Sometimes the memories leak through. The mind control is not sufficient, mind wipe, etc. I can tell you, for example, Robert Sala, who is someone who testifies about the Minot Air Force Base and other missile launch platforms where he worked, and I forget the exact names. He's testified and is quite well known, and I've interviewed him on this as well. And he himself knows that when he was working for the military, even in Rendlesham, he was called in to be given some medical attention that he didn't need. And so and I have witnesses that are called to the dentist. All of a sudden, they're suddenly are supposed to get some kind of work done there. These are the places where they will put in the mind control and the blocks. And sometimes the bleed through occurs. Duncan O'Finian is a famous super soldier who testified that to us that after about the age of 50, your memories start coming back. So the reality is that it is actually shocking how few whistleblowers we really have, when in fact there are so many of the military who don't even realize they've been involved in something. I mean, this is the real root of, you might say, PTSD. A lot of these soldiers have gone off planet. They don't even know. They don't realize they thought they were shipped to Iraq. They were fighting in Iraq, and their screen memory is one thing, and what actually happened is another thing altogether. And this also includes according to witnesses. Alien abduction. So the military, our military, will implant memories, false memories of alien abduction to cover up them being individuals being MILAB'd by the military. But oftentimes the strange thing, and this is sort of I don't know, a hall of mirrors, because aliens will also be involved in that aspect. So it's when some person says that they've got a screen memory, they realize it was a screen memory, they've got another memory. You're familiar with the way mind control works, and there will be levels upon levels to basically make a sort of a fail safe, so that humans don't tap into what has really gone on with them, and so on.
Should humanity be worried?
Yes, this is one of my points, and this is why I do the job I do, because this is all about races that are preying on humans, specifically on our children, on our young people, taking them off planet as slaves, using them in various capacities, killing them, eating them, so on. Sorry to be so graphic. And this is where the whole pedophilia links in. And this is where also the adrenochrome and the manufacture of it. All of this comes from the Draco reptilian lineages that have also, and also the Greys that are actually a form of reptilian, that have actually been infiltrated our genome, the human genome on this planet. So there are a lot of racial lines that some of whom are a lot more, you might say, reptilian than others, and they are part of they have these proclivities. You're talking about Jeffrey Epstein and his island and who they could attract, the so-called blue bloods of the, of the royalty, the lines of royalty, so-called royalty. All of this goes back to preying on other humans, to a power over paradigm that we have been operating on here on Earth for eons, and have been victims of, if you want to call it that. So in my view, humans need to know their prey. We need to know who the enemy is in order to protect us and our children. And
well,
this is why it's so important.
Protect ourselves. Are we being protected?
There is some protection, but not much, not much in my view. What this is a sort of a yin and yang, positive, negative polarity planet. At this time, we've been 3D, we're actually moving into 4D now. But the bottom line is that in such a planet, the souls that come in are given these challenges to either, to stay alive and to learn quickly, obviously. And if they don't, they simply die. Now you can reincarnate and come back into the game again, obviously. So we're really talking about a sort of a might makes right, a challenging scenario in which it's learn or die. And under these circumstances, humans have had to learn very quickly, and some astonishingly. See, the trouble is that the humans became collaborators with the enemy, so to speak. So we have a large contingent of humans who now want to deceive the other half of humans, so to speak, and they have sided with the enemy, with the Dracos and the reptilians and other various races, some of whom are trying to become our friends, like the mantids. Simon Parkes will tell you that he believes he's a mantid hybrid. And that the mantids have now sided with the humans, but they used to actually, prey upon us on a regular basis. And so there are various contingents going on here on Earth, and we are, in fact, this election is a perfect example of the Luciferians and alien races trying to sort of put into place once and for all their new world order, to get rid of any sense of freedom on the planet. They've been using COVID for that purpose. It's not about a disease of any kind, it's about control. And so they want to control humans.
So your bottom line, does President Trump know about all of this, and is he doing the right thing?
Yes, absolutely. He's well read in, and I'm sure of that. And I can say that he is working along with his team and John F. Kennedy Jr. to right the wrongs that have been perpetrated upon humanity, including the early death of John F. Kennedy. Now, the scenario, it's a constant, in other words, a gain on the light, if you call it light, a battle between light and dark. You get a gain on the light and a gain on the dark, and we go like this constantly. So it's that kind of a planet, and we go from one side of the polarity to the other until we learn how to basically transcend and integrate both sides, both the light and the dark. And we live lives that encompass our learning curve in each sector. So I would say that a person who is nearing ascension would have had to live lives on both sides, integrate them both, and feel able to deal with both with a lot of fluidity, understanding, and love in the end, I guess.
All right. You brought up John F. Kennedy Jr. I've done an analysis, and I've come to the conclusion that it's 80% likely that he and his wife are alive. I've talked to someone who claims they have actually met him recently, and he's alive. What can you add to our sense of whether Kennedy Jr. is alive or not?
Well, I can say, and I have talked about this in other places, but I had, during this summer, I had a night in which, for some reason, I simply had nonstop dreams that didn't seem like dreams, that seemed stronger and more real than reality, in which I was interacting with John F. Kennedy Jr. and talking with him, interacting with a group of people and him, interacting with Trump and him, nonstop all night long. So I would go to sleep for a short time, then I would wake up, I would recall what I was seeing, I would go to sleep again, wake up, and it went on all night like that. And in the process, when I woke up to this reality during those times, I would think that this reality was absolutely not reality, and I would go back into this other reality. What that told me,
multiple timelines, and I recently reviewed The Music of Time about frequencies and time and space travel. So I have a completely open mind on this, even though I myself have no direct knowledge. Let's end on what I hope will be a happy note. How do you see the next 2 months going in the United States of America?
Okay, well, let me clarify, because I am a time traveler. I think we're all time travelers, but I'm very aware of different timelines. And I will tell you that this was not a different timeline, for what it's worth. You know, everyone's going to have their own point of view. But what I was seeing was the future and the now, maybe the eternal now, but nonetheless, it was this timeline that I was dealing with. I don't know how I know that. I just know that. Mm-hmm. So, but in terms of the future, this has been very interesting for me, because as a precog, I get validation. So I get things that come into my mind like little film strips, and then they play out in front of my eyes later. And sometimes it can be years, and a lot of years. Like, I have a whole library of this stuff in my head. And sometimes it's something very brief, and I could have a dream tonight and it could happen tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I've had even recent validations.
So what's your bottom line on now to February?
All right. So what I'm trying to say is that it's been very foggy. In other words, nothing is really coming very clear, other than small things. So what I'm seeing in the future is we're not wearing masks. Since Biden's agenda is that we wear masks all the time, and he's actually said this, which is completely absurd, I have to say that I don't think he's going to last. And I don't think Kamala is either, as far as being a president. So I don't think they have a long life, as in that role. Now, I hope and I believe that President Trump has all the evidence that the election has been stolen. And I have further evidence that has come behind the scenes to me that validates that. I believe that they're going to make a very good case in the courts, and there's no reason why they shouldn't win, because it's the truth. The elections have always been stolen, but now they're going to demonstrate how, and this is just one way they've been stolen. There are a multitude of ways. I don't know if they're going to get into the Dominion software and all of that, but certainly we know that goes on. Whether Trump will be victorious in the courts is another matter, because the dark side never sleeps either. So people have to understand, you can rerun the election, you can review everything in the courts, but some of those judges can be bought, can be threatened, et cetera, et cetera. And how do you prevent this? There has to be things in place that Trump has foreseen in order to make sure that these things are going to be brought forward in a true and honest way. It's an uphill battle. I do believe there's every reason to believe that Trump is actually supposed to fulfill the next 4 years here on the planet, because everything they set in place during the first 4 years was to come to fruition the last 4 years. If he gets halted in the middle of that, it seems like a huge crime against humanity also, because understanding that Trump and his team are all about disclosure of the truth. They want to show people the truth about what's going on the planet. And that does include the underground bases, the children that have been held as prisoners in underground bases, and so on, and as well as the indictments that need to be coming forward. If there was to be cut short, then he wouldn't be able to fulfill his promise and what he was actually incarnated to do fully and completely. And that doesn't seem right to me. Whether, now I'm not, I can only see so far. And like I say,
that's fine.
I have seen myself in the future, and I'm joking with my partner. We're at an airport and I'm looking around and most people are not wearing masks. Something had to change in a positive way. One, we're traveling, and two, they're not wearing masks. That's enough for me to say it's very possible that Trump will win.
I agree with you. I even wonder if Joe Biden is working for Trump, and this is part of a WrestleMania drama that's been scripted out, because what Biden and Kamala Harris have done is so stupid as to defy belief. So, all right, let me give you the last word, and then we'll stop. Anything that you want to share, like what's going on in Antarctica?
Well, apparently there's a control center for planet Earth in Antarctica. So you might well wonder that, and it is worth discussing as to how Trump is dealing with those beings, okay? Because this sort of the Nazi underlay that came through with the Third Reich has gone into the Fourth Reich. And it's no accident that what we're seeing in terms of the control, and it's manifesting in England in a very diabolical way as I speak, and other countries. And I have to say, all of this agenda has been rolling out very quickly and just recently. So the Nazi agenda seems to be coming to the fore more and more and more. And that is stunning to see that really in your face at this time on planet Earth. So Trump and his team have to fight that. They have to fight the good fight. I think we may go to a civil war, to be honest with you. I am not so sure that things are going to calm down, even if Trump gets into power. I have had precog dreams of the future that are not pleasant. Okay, so there are some things that could come down. There could be some heavy duty invasion going on from China into the United States. Apparently, it's already happening in Canada. So I warn people about that. I'm trying to warn people about that. I don't think Biden's working for Trump. I think he's working for the Greys and for China. And I do believe that the Chinese Communist Party are intent in taking over control of the world, and especially the United States and the resources and brain trust here, if anything. So this is the battle for the future and what we're involved in that's beginning to manifest now. And, it's an incredible time to be alive. And I wish that my wish is that the Trump administration and the Trump team will come forward with as much heavy duty ammunition at this time, instead of promising that this is going to happen and that arrest is happening and these rescues are happening. I think that they should be coming forward during these crucial months before January 20th with the real goods. It doesn't mean everything. I understand that they're trying to, show people, but then show us what you've done. If you want people to be enlightened and to see a different way. It doesn't mean you're going to change them, by the way. You can show somebody all night and all day, but if they don't want to see, whether it's Columbus or anything else, they're going to attribute it to whatever they want. So this is where we are. We're at a very interesting juncture. That's my parting words is that they come forward with some of the goods, because he has been fighting with one hand tied behind his back. He has Trump cards in hand, and I think he should bring his Trump cards forward.
Let's end on that note. Thank you, Kerry. I have a completely open mind, and I value your richly hard-earned perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.